One, two, 1, 2. All right, what's up, folks? I'm here, Elijah 5000. This is Edge to Otaku on the Edge 2 Gaming Twitch channel. So that means if this is your first time here, this is your place to get One Piece, well, not just One Piece, but anime and manga content weekly. Every week, every Sunday, I release the official live read with the manga panels of One Piece. We discuss it, we come up with theories, go through my excitement for the live read on Sundays. Mondays and Tuesdays, typically the brief spoilers drop, which we got this week. Sometimes there's full spoilers. This week, we did not get full spoilers. What we have here are the TCB scans. Now, if you're one of the OGs from the Edge 2 Gaming YouTube channel before it got taken down, before it got terminated, we had all the videos there. You knew that TCB scans, I used to show you those scans. Since there's different translations between the official and the TCB scans, I no longer show you those scans. I just show you the official one. So what we have right now in the background, you guys already know what it is One Piece Elbaf, because I am catching up. I'm going to do some reactions on Patreon right now. Patreon was working yesterday when we played with Boz on Marvel Rivals. Today it's not working, so the Patreon crew video will be uploaded later. Meaning, once I get all that shit straightened out, we will be having watch parties again. But let's go through the TCB scans for this week because I do need to get some rest before work. But I am excited to go and deep dive in this because the brief spoilers really didn't give too much away. We knew that CandeLLE was going to pass away. We know the cover is Boa Hancock, which I actually like because it shows Boa Hancock actually learning how to cook for Luffy. And I'm not the person to be like, oh, well, she needs to learn to cook for a man and this and that. I'm just saying it's nice to see that the love sickness hasn't like just crippled her. She's just learning new things and making her well-rounded, which I like Boa Hancock's character. She has changed from the time where she was kicking fucking pooches and kittens and like killing her own people, you know. But let's go ahead and dive into this. Chapter 1185. Y'all better buzz off. This is a cover request by Masako. Hancock hones her cooking skills for Luffy. We start the chapter with a young 21-year-old King Luven says, CandeLLE, make Brook your page, as he looks valiantly over his shoulder at her and Brook. Teach him good manners and how to speak properly. And she goes, you got it, Lord Luven. And then we see Brook with his rapier over his right shoulder, and it has like a cloth around it too, carrying it as he walks at 11-year-old Brook down the street to CandeLLE. And he goes, whoa, the palace is packed with cute babes. So Brook has always had a love for women since he was alive, since he was a little kid. And he says, there's one hottie, two hotties, not her, three hotties. And then CandeLLE says, cut it out as she walks away. And Brook is just laughing with hearts around his head. He says, don't worry, you're still number one, CandeLLE. And she says, that's Lady CandeLLE. You're now my page, as she hangs her head low with her two fingers like she's getting ready to instant transmission. Brook is just cheesing. Then he turns around and there's a girl there and he says, yo, let me see your panties. And she turns around and yells, Brook, as she makes the demon face that they all do, just like Nami. Then we see CandeLLE giving Brook a guitar, or she's leaning down as he holds a guitar over his shoulder and his hand up in the air. And she says, hey, do you have an issue with wearing your school uniform? And then Brook says, if I let that school cramp my style, I won't be able to jam and make good tunes anymore. Don't worry, though. I'm looking forward to rocking a guard corps uniform one day. So Brooks wants to be just like CandeLLE. He wants to be a part of the battle convoy. But in school and in music, he wants his soul to be liberated. And he's wild. He's always been wild. We now see that he's more tame with Luffy. And he honors Luffy and he vows his life to Luffy. But then also when we see Brook doing his music shit, he is wild as fuck. And then we see CandeLLE looking over Brook in his bed as he's hugged up on his guitar sleeping, making Z's and note sounds at the same time. CandeLLE leans down, smiling, puts the cover over Brook's shoulder, and that ends the night. And then we see Brook talking to what seems to be some battle convoy members. And one guy with a straight mustache is looking over his shoulder with his cape draped over his shoulders. He says, "Gotta admit, I'm jealous." Another fat one that's eating, sitting down with hearts in his eyes, says, "I can't believe this kid gets to be Lady CandeLLE's page." And then Brook is eating too and going, "Yo ho 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 ho." Then we see them both lancing at targets. CandeLLE is hitting every target. Brook is tired. He says, "CandeLLE, do you have a type of guy you go for?" And Lady CandeLLE, she says, "Lady CandeLLE, there is one man, but he's out of my league," she says. And then Brook's intrigued. She turns around. She says, "Still, the reason I train so hard with the sword is to be by his side." And there's a question mark from Brook. And then Brook looks on and he smiles and says, "I bet you get him if you dress more like a chick instead of a dude." And she says, "That's not necessary. That's not necessary. Being near him is more than enough for me," CandeLLE says. And Brook says, "Huh? Near him? Does that mean it's me?" And he smiles and his cheeks are all rosy. And she yells at him. She says, "Of course not." And it's kind of like Sanji yelling at Zoro as she towers over him. Brook walking down the street, hands behind his head, taking up space with the sword on his back. And he goes, "Lady CandeLLE, don't tell me you even wear men's underwear." And she goes, "I don't." Says, "Really? Then you've got to let me see your panties." She says, "Brook, your language is not improving. You have to be polite and use honorifics when you ask someone for a favor." And he goes, "Would you be so kind as to show me your panties?" As he bends over, gleaming sparkles around his face, being as polite as he can, as an 11-year-old. And then she leaves him with a fucking knot on his head. She says, "Of course not. Even outside of politeness, you need to consider basic decency too. I'm going to drill good etiquette into you." She turns away. She says, "Good grief," as he's laying on the floor. And then we see her continue to walk. A musician playing music in the street, a man and woman in love. We are actually a woman looking at CandeLLE in love, hard eyes around her head and hands to the side. Brooks trying to get up with the knot on his head and says, "Strength and etiquette go hand in hand," he remembers. He also remembers hearing, "What? Then I'll do my best. I mean, I shall endeavor to give it my all." Then we see older Brook sitting with Shuri as he just finished this flashback of what happened when her dad and her mom basically took him into the palace. He's sitting there playing. I think he's 27 at this point. Or maybe he's 20. 27, because Shuri's older. He's sitting there strumming his guitar. He says, "There's not a soul around who doesn't admire Lady CandeLLE." And then he looks at her and he says, "She shines like the sun over the whole nation." Now that I think about it, there was this one time the world government ship drifted up here in Esperia. The kingdom was thrown into a panic, as no one had ever dealt directly with people of such stature. And then Shuri's leaning down. She's like, "The celestial dragon?" That she looks up at Brook. And he goes, "Yep, the pressure was overwhelming." As he's sitting there strumming the guitar, legs crossed, and he goes, "Lady CandeLLE was actually bedridden for a few months after that, possibly due to the stress. You wouldn't believe how dark the kingdom felt back then. Yo ho ho ho." And he says, "I shouldn't laugh, but it really was like the sunset on our kingdom." And then he leans down to Shuri. He says, "But that was just the beginning. You wouldn't believe the influx of news that followed, princess. Your father, the renowned rugged prince, ascended to the throne, and at the same time he married your mother, Lady CandeLLE. The celebration across Esperia were as thrilling as a live concert, and everybody's throwing confetti in the air. Luven's waving. Brook is happy." Then he stands up. He says, and then we were blessed by your birth, Princess Shuri." The nation positively bubbled over the joy. People were always saying, "I want to see her face," or "She's so cute," or "She takes after her mother." Oops, I'm getting off topic, he says, as he's still strumming the guitar. She's just watching Brook as he's telling her and kind of singing about the past. And he goes, "But you get the picture. That's why I love your folks. They're my ultimate benefactors. In fact, I'd gladly relinquish my life for those two. Check out my latest hit, Relinquish Rock," he calls it. And then Shuri says, "Mommy and Daddy, Mommy and Daddy." So Brook, "What would you do if I were in danger?" He's like, "That's obvious," and throws his hands up in the air. He's like, "I lay down my life." He said, "I lay down my life in a heartbeat for you two." He's like, "Is that?" And then she's just pouting. "Is that just because I'm their daughter?" And he goes, "No, it's because you're you. You're supposed to say that wholeheartedly without hesitation," she says, because he paused just for a minute. And then she pouts and leans forward. And just like Chopper, whenever Robin holds over some candy, Brook holds out a lollipop. She turns, she starts drooling hearts in her eyes, and she's happy again. Then you see her doing the same drills Brook did it with her mother, but on him as he blocks with his rapier. Then she's on his shoulders, hearts floating around her, just hand in the air. And she says, "Hey, Daddy." And then her Luven says, "Use father instead. You're not a little girl anymore." And then he just has his hand right here, not really pissed off, just like not amused. And then CandeLLE's just sitting there smiling. She said, "Love you too, father." Ugh. As Brook takes her on her shoulder walking by, and then we see she's fallen. She's got maybe a splinter or she's cut her finger, and Brook is running to her on bent knee, freaked out with the first aid kit. His Princess Shuri, if you're craving freedom from your parents, you know you can always vent it out with a song like this. Y'all better buzz off. And then we just see a montage of Shuri out in the rain with a dog, and Brook finding her, putting an umbrella over her head. Then she's trying to get taller, and Brook's measuring her against the wall. She's standing on her tippy toes, and she goes, "Ah, why did those lyrics sound so weird?" And then it continues. Brook says, "It's a dialect from a kingdom in the west called Kamagata." And then we see Shuri kicking Brook in the back of the head as he is asking another woman for her panties politely. Then we see her scaring him with a handkerchief looking ghost. He's running away. So Brook has always been scared of ghosts. Then we see them sitting down at the dump where her father and Brook used to sit. He's playing the guitar. She's fishing. Then we see Brook is in bandages, broken leg in the hospital, and Shuri's getting mad at a nurse. And the lyrics continue. "We ain't pups, bought off with treats. We ain't kids." And Princess CandeLLE, actually queen at this time, is showing Princess Shuri how to cook food for Brook. And she takes it to Brook in his bed as she falls asleep on his lap as he eats, and he's happy to eat any of her food. We remember Brook was eating frogs and roaches and cockroaches and shit like that. And the lyrics continue, "Turned around by sweets." Then we see Brook smiling, Shuri hugging him as he's better. And it says, "In Shuri's 15th year," the narrator says. And then man playing the violins like, huh? It's out of tune. The narrator continues, "Music died in the kingdom of Esperia. A thick mist shrouded the country and lingered for half a year. The land's treasured instruments decayed as the mist turned to smog." And we see all these instruments piled up on ships, piled up in the graveyard, just decaying. The narrator says, "The island was swallowed whole." We continue, "Music no longer echoed through the streets. Joyful melodies gave way to sounds of coughing." And then we see Brook still trying to strum on broken instruments. "Let's bring on the music, cough, cough, yeah." And he sings, and we see people just staggering like little fucking zombies on Thriller Bark through the streets as they listen to Brook music. The narrator says, "The toxic smog ravaged the lungs of tens of thousands and claimed the lives of hundreds." And then it says, "The fog will clear, it must," says Queen CandeLLE. And then we see someone sitting down at the docks. It looks like it's a raggedy-ass Brook. But then there's a huge ceremony. People's clothes are raggedy. Everyone's crying. Narrator continues, "Beset by one unimaginable tragedy after another, the kingdom knew nothing but suffering. And after the fog had lifted, the scars it caused remain because Queen CandeLLE has passed." And we see Shuri crying, Brook crying, King Luven down on his knees at her grave, he crying. And then it says, "Your Highness, we still owe the government this year's heavenly tribute, but we can't afford to pay them." And then we see the palace decayed and crumbled. Hiya! Shuri is striking straight at Brook. Brook takes a solid stand and blocks. He says, "Whoa there." Brook says, "Princess, the way you move, sometimes it's like you can see the future." Maybe her eye? And Shuri goes, "I'm going to be just like mommy. I mean, mother." And then they're walking in the rain with that puppy that she saved. Brook says, "I think you would be well suited for that, but I doubt your father would be pleased at the notion of you fighting on the front lines, Princess." And she goes, "Father, he seems troubled lately." And Brook says, "I have an idea why, but there's nothing we can do about it. I will simply follow the king to the very end," as he smiles and looks up at the sky. And Shuri says, "Didn't you want to become a pirate, Brook?" Okay, when did this happen? Oh, my bad. I am not even paying attention. I don't know how long this shit has been foggy. I don't know how long the camera's been foggy, y'all. I have been in this story. I have been in the TCB scans. If you stay with me this long, you win a prize. You win 10,000 points. Keep those for the next stream. But Brook is here. And when did this conversation happen? It had to happen before she turned 15 about being a pirate. But we hear, I'm happy to put my dreams on hold while I repay my debt to His Majesty, Brook says. And she goes, when the time comes, I'm going with you. So Shuri was supposed to be a pirate with Brook. She's supposed to leave the kingdom. And then Brook goes, absolutely not. She says, try and stop me. And then we see King Luven just haggard to shit. He said, the world government is our enemy. This means war, as he tells the people. What? And Brook just bows and says, understood. No questions asked. And then they say, Commander. And then other members of the battle convoy, Your Majesty, I must ask that you tell us your reasoning first. And then Luven says, Brook, they demanded 1,000 slaves. That is the only way they would waive this year's heavenly tribute. Slavery in the Holy Land is a fate worse than death. And they're like, no way, as the entire battle convoy is just sitting there looking and listening to Luven. He says, the government's armada will arrive in 2 months, and I have no intention of choosing human sacrifices to hand over to them. Then we see the people like looking to Brook. Is our country done for, Commander? And Brook just walks. Don't all non-member nations turn into lawless zones? Someone else says as Brook is just walking. They're crying. Are they really going to loot us for everything we've got? Then Brook takes out a guitar. Apparently, there was once another nation in the West Blue that disappeared too. I've heard there's all these tales out where the deadly sea winds wail. About a land that makes the mighty shake with fear, a land that won't come near. A home for the samurai and the giant folk. It exists like all the tales spoke. Like a man old bee, a sting, and they'll flee. They said to consider your views. And Brook is just singing about the home for samurai, which is Wano, giant folk, Elbath. He says, because we've got nothing left to lose. Wah ha ha ha. Hey, that's right, they say. They all cheer up. And then we see Brook running in the battle convoy. So they've landed on the northern port. Platoon 12, intercept. And then we get this fucking double panel of Brook commanding the troops fighting off the world government. There's world marine ships coming in, the convoy on the floor, hands on their swords, and they say, y'all better buzz off. That song again. And we hear some, nobody said that there'd be this many of them. Don't let them set foot on the island. Y'all better buzz off again. Starts to play in someone's mind. We're out here on the map's edge, but don't y'all scoff. And we see Brook sheathing his sword, breathing heavily. And he goes, our name ain't something that can be wiped with ease. You'll find taking our home ain't gonna be a breeze. And then a bomb goes off. Wow, just blows up convoy members, Marines. Then we see Brook, I'll hold the barricade at the staircase. And then Luven is yelling at Shuri, that's out of the question. You'll be at their mercy if they capture you. Someone says, Commander, the enemy has breached the palace. And then Shuri says, why can't I fight too? And then we see I don't know, it looks like maybe 2 Marines, actually. It says, don't you have any crazy ideas now, princess? As Brook runs out head first, making sure Shuri does not have to go to the battlefield. And they say, it's a raider. Ah, man, princess, the garden we've always walked in is all fucked up now, all beat to shit. It says it's been set to ablaze, and we see there's no tree standing, there's no flowers, just bodies being sliced down by Brook. Then we see Brook, the whole country is in flames. Says, oh, your majesty, the junkyard we used to play in has been reduced to a hellish inferno. Then we see Brook singing and swirling through, cutting more Marines down. Y'all better buzz off. Y'all better buzz off. The edge of the map's a hell of a sight, 'cause it shines mighty and bright. Brook still cutting, singing in his head, if we finally snap for real, that shaking is all you'll feel. He runs up the stairs. Your majesty, Princess Shuri, to where Luven and Shuri were. And then he opens the door and he sees a man sitting there smoking a cigar behind Shuri and Luven, both with black wings. Luven is on the dead. Black flame and blood on the end of Shuri's sword as she stands there with devil horns. And then there's a fucking figure off in the corner, which is, I think, Marcus Mars, actually. And then Shuri says, worried about the war? It's already over, Brook. And Brook is in shock, sword down, eyes sticking out of his head. And she says, aren't you happy? And he panel zooms in on Luven dead with horns. Brook staring, Shuri just staring, and then the man with the cigar. And what happened here? Shuri looks at him and licks her lips, and her eyes are ablaze. And this is the end of the chapter. These are the TCP scans. Oh boy, looks like Shuri that was locked up and impaled down. I think that's his name. That's now a Blackbeard, and he is huge as shit. He has to be a Knight of God. And I think the way that, if this is true, Shuri gets taken over, is we go back to CandeLLE being sick for a couple of months and everything being bad until Shuri's born. What if the celestial dragons came and impregnated CandeLLE? And she got sick because she was having Shuri, and Shuri is celestial and X, Y, and Z. Just like for Garland came down, and Shanks is half him and half whatever. But I want to know, is this Mars in the corner? Because who is the Gorosei that is the bird? That's the one. That's the one we need right now, because I need to know who this motherfucker is. Okay, yeah, St. Marcus Mars, so I was right. He turns into the Itsumade, a giant monstrous bird with snake-like neck, and that is what we see. And it's just the shadow of it in the corner, like here. Luven's on the ground, Shuri standing up, and then old boy is behind Shuri smoking his cigar as Brook walks in. So we are probably going to get 2 more chapters of flashback, because we got a flashback inside a flashback. Now we're getting caught up, and now this will be like, what happens after this? What led Brook to be a part of the Rumbar Pirates? What happened to Esperia? And then we're back to Elbaf. A lot of you guys don't like the flashbacks in the middle of the fights, the flashbacks inside the flashbacks, but it gives context to what's coming next. I think Brook's moment spurring towards Shuri spurred Usopp into action, and this is going to be a Brook and Usopp story, and as well as Frankie. Frankie got his upgrade. Jinbei, we about to see some from him. We about to see a little bit more from Nico Ramen. But what are your thoughts and theories for this chapter? This has been 1185. The TCB scans. You've either been checking out shit in the back or paying close attention. It was kind of blurry, so we should be fine. But I'm excited. I do think the world government, one, Oda not showing respect for moms again, another sick mom, but also after the world government then touched on her, put the hands on her the wrong way. I think Shuri is a celestial, just like Shanks. Luven knew that. That's why Luven's always been against the world government. Fuck them motherfuckers. And then now Shuri and him have been taken over. I think the only way that Luven got taken over was during his marriage to CandeLLE. He made a pact because he knew what had happened and where Shuri came from, and he wanted to be Shuri's dad. Shuri is actually blood, and this is her land, so of course the inhabitants of this country should be able to be turned Domi Reversi, but we'll see next chapter, because we're going to get answers for our 2 new villains. I mean, if it's Marcus Mars, we just know this motherfucker's old as shit, but we need to know who the Knight of God is, or who that Admiral is, or whoever the fuck it is that's sitting back there smoking a cigar. So let me know what your thoughts are. What are you thinking? Why do you think they showed up now? Why is this happening to Brook? Why are we getting Brook's backstory at this point in time in Elbaf? And why it doesn't matter? Brook is going to put a stop to the Domi Reversi with Shuri. He's going to wake her up as Chopper may not be the forest god. He's bitch slapping motherfuckers back. And then Frankie's got something to do with Vegapunk. We're going to get the Stella Vegapunk back. There's going to be a lot that happens before we move on from Elbaf that goes into this final battle royale. But let me know what you think in the comments. Also, Sundays, I do not do the live read at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time when One Piece drops. I do it later in the evening because we have our native Japanese speaker that I listen to and try to get some more accurate contextual understanding of what's going on before we talk about and discuss it, because translations, just because it's translated, doesn't mean it's correct. I want to give you the most pure version of One Piece I can because I'm a One Piece fan. I know you guys appreciate it. Thank you for joining me. This has been Edge to Otaku on YouTube. Make sure to follow, subscribe to that channel. But also Edge 2 Gaming is where we get all the 100 hours training, 100 hours of Ryu, 100 hours of martial law right now for Street Fighter and Tekken 8. Master Roshi's still going to be here on Edge 2 Otaku. Anything that's manga or anime is right here, but it will all be streamed on Twitch from Edge 2 Gaming. Make sure to go everywhere, follow, turn on notifications, look at the schedule, and join the streams. Also, there's discounts, there are giveaways, prizes, and also free subs. Come join. If you have Amazon Prime, go ahead, and you haven't used your sub this month on a streamer that you support, go ahead and stream at short. Support the stream by using your Prime sub. I just used it the other day on a friend stream just to give them and show them a little bit of love, and that is the only way that we're going to grow as a community. But also this helps support and get me more active within the Black Twitch Guild. More support for you means I have more time to stream and do more and help grow the community, because otherwise I'm at work putting in hours on the fucking clock and then dropping afterwards. I would like to do more with you, especially with One Piece. The lore is getting so crazy. Oda is doing work. I don't know how much longer we have, but I am fucking excited about it. So I'm Elijah 5000. Thank you guys so much. I will catch you in the next stream. Peace. See, we're getting fuzzy again. Wait, so we can't go out fuzzy. I love it, but Fuzzy Wuzzy was not a bear that didn't have hair. Fuzzy had hair, but then he got it cleaned up. There we go. Thank you guys. Catch you around. Peace.